The Parker family dinner was in full swing, crystal glasses clinking as my relatives celebrated my brother Mark's latest real business acquisition, another struggling brick-and-mortar store added to his chain of overpriced boutiques. To success, my father raised his glass. And to doing business the proper way. I pushed my food around my plate, already knowing what was coming. 3, 2, 1. Speaking of business, my mother turned to me with fake concern. Are you still doing that little online thing, Jennifer? Selling crafts or whatever it is. I took a slow sip of wine. If they only knew that little online thing had cleared 8 figures last month. Something like that, Mom. God, how embarrassing, my sister-in-law Melissa chimed in, adjusting her designer scarf, probably bought on credit like everything else in their lavish lifestyle. Don't you want a real career? Mark laughed, scanning the dining room of his newly mortgaged mansion. Come on, Jen. This is what success looks like. Not sitting behind a computer playing shopkeeper. I thought about the empire I'd built in secret Nova Digital, the fastest-growing e-commerce platform in North America. While they'd mocked my little website, I'd revolutionized online retail, building a company that now facilitated billions in transactions monthly. Everyone knows real business happens face-to-face, my father lectured, gesturing with his fork. This internet fad will pass. If he'd bothered to read any business news, he'd have known that Mark's successful chain of stores was hemorrhaging money, bleeding out against online competition. Competition like mine. How much did you make last year with your... Melissa waved her hand dismissively. Digital hobby? I smiled, remembering the acquisition offer I'd just turned down, $2.1 billion from a major tech giant. Enough to get by. That's the problem with your generation, my father sighed. No ambition. No understanding of real business. Look at Mark, 3 new stores this year alone. Yes, look at Mark. Look at the mounting debt, the high-interest mortgages, the credit cards maxed out to maintain appearances. I'd seen it all in the financial records when his company applied for a Nova Digital business account. My phone buzzed. Jessica, my CFO, Davidson Financial accepted our offer. We now own all the Parker family mortgages. I'd been quietly buying their debt through shell companies for months. Not out of malice, but because I knew the house of cards was about to collapse. Mark's latest acquisition had pushed them to the brink. At least I tried to help, Mark was saying. Offered you a job at one of my stores. Real retail experience. I remembered that generous offer, minimum wage, folding sweaters in the back room. I'd been running Nova Digital for 2 years by then, already worth millions. Thanks, but I'm happy with my current situation. Happy? Melissa scoffed. Living in that tiny apartment hiding behind a computer? That's not success, that's settling. My tiny apartment was actually the entire top floor of a luxury building downtown. But they'd never visited, too busy showing off Mark's newest acquisitions. Speaking of success, my father turned to Mark. Tell everyone about the expansion plans. Mark puffed up. We're adding 5 more stores next quarter. Taking out some additional financing, but that's how you grow in real business. I checked my phone again, another message from Jessica. All mortgage transfers complete. Banks will notify them tomorrow. More stores. I kept my voice casual. That's ambitious. That's how you build an empire, little sister. Mark smirked. Not everyone can hide behind a keyboard pretending to run a business. My mother nodded approvingly. Mark understands traditional values. The importance of a proper business education. I thought about my MBA from MIT completed at night while building Nova Digital. They'd skipped the graduation ceremony, too busy celebrating Mark's latest store opening. Tell me, I said quietly, how are the stores performing against online competition? Mark's smile flickered. Traditional retail will always have its place. People want to touch things, try them on. While comparing prices on their phones, I finished. Probably using Nova Digital's price comparison app. Nova what? My father frowned. Nothing. I stood up, gathering my things. Just another internet company. Nothing as impressive as real stores. Leaving already? Melissa's voice dripped with satisfaction. I suppose your little online shop needs attention. I paused at the door, thinking about tomorrow morning when their banks would call. About the moment they'd learn that their mortgages, personal and business, now belonged to a mysterious digital retail corporation. Yes, I smiled. Business never sleeps online. Mark raised his glass again. To real success. To empire building. I thought about his empire of debt, now owned by my little online shop. To tomorrow, I said softly. I have a feeling it's going to be interesting. The next morning I sat in my penthouse office, watching the sun rise over the city while waiting for the inevitable calls. Jessica had already texted. The banks had started their notifications at 8 a.m. sharp. Your brother's been trying to reach Nova Digital's customer service for an hour, she reported. He's getting quite aggressive with our representatives. I smiled, pulling up the security cameras at Mark's flagship store. Even at this early hour I could see him pacing inside, phone pressed to his ear, face growing redder by the minute. At 9:15 my personal phone exploded. First Mark, then my parents, then Melissa, all calling in panic. I let them go to voicemail, instead watching my company's stock ticker climb higher. Nova Digital had just announced its expansion into physical asset management. Finally, at 9:45 I answered. Jennifer. Mark's voice cracked with desperation. Something insane is happening. All our mortgages, the stores, the house, everything, they've been bought by some online company. Really? I kept my voice casual. How interesting. Interesting? It's a disaster. They're demanding an audit of all our financial records. They're talking about reviewing our entire business model. I thought about the years of watching him expand recklessly, leveraging everything on a dying retail model while mocking my little online shop. What company bought the mortgages? I asked innocently. Some tech giant called Nova Digital. I've never even heard of them. Their CEO won't take my calls, and their board is suggesting I step down from my own company. The irony was delicious. He'd been trying to reach me all morning, he just didn't know it. Nova Digital? I repeated. Hold on, let me check something. I pulled up their corporate website on my screen, knowing exactly what he'd see if he did the same. There, under Executive Leadership, was my photo. Jennifer Parker, founder and CEO. The silence on the other end told me he'd found it too. No, he whispered. This is impossible. Actually, it's quite possible. Remember all those times you mocked my online hobby? Turns out e-commerce can be quite profitable. Jenny listened. That's Miss Parker, I corrected. Or Miss CEO if you prefer. Now about those financial records. My office door opened. My parents had apparently decided to skip the phone call and come directly to Nova Digital's headquarters. They stopped short at the sight of my corner office, the wall of business awards, the view that probably cost more than Mark's entire chain of stores. Jennifer. My mother's voice was small. What is all this? This. I gestured around. This is my little online thing. The one you never bothered to understand. My father stepped forward, his face a mix of shock and growing calculation. Sweetheart, we should talk about this as a family. Like we talked about Mark's expansion plans? Or how about all those family dinners where you celebrated his real business while dismissing mine? Jessica appeared in the doorway. Miss Parker? The board is ready for the strategy meeting. And Mr. Parker's store managers are on line 3. Apparently they haven't been paid this month. I smiled at my family's stunned faces. Looks like running a real business isn't as easy as you thought, is it, Mark? You have to help us, Melissa burst out. We'll lose everything. Like you helped me. With all the mockery and condescension. I turned to my computer, pulling up Mark's complete financial records. Let's see. 18 months of declining sales, 3 maxed out business credit lines and personal guarantees on everything. Not exactly the empire you bragged about at dinner. Mark sank into one of my office chairs. What are you going to do? Me? I'm going to run my business. Nova Digital is launching a new hybrid retail model. We're acquiring struggling traditional stores and modernizing them. I paused, letting that sink in. Of course, that means replacing outdated management. You take my stores? Mark's voice cracked. Your own brother's business. Business is business, I quoted our father's favorite phrase. Nothing personal, right? My parents exchanged glances, finally realizing the true power dynamic. Their daughter wasn't just successful, she was their boss. However, I continued, I'm feeling generous. Nova Digital will restructure your debt on one condition. Anything, my father said quickly. From now on, the family business is my business. Mark steps down, I install my own management team, and the Parker retail chain becomes a subsidiary of Nova Digital. But what will I do? Mark stammered. I slid a contract across the desk. There's an entry-level position in our e-commerce division. You can learn how online business really works. Starting salary is minimum wage, just like that job you offered me. Melissa started to protest, but Mark silenced her with a look. He knew it was this or bankruptcy. One more thing, I added as he reached for the pen. Family dinners will now be held at my place. I think it's time you all saw what a little online shop can become. After they left, thoroughly humbled, Jessica brought in the latest market reports. Nova Digital stock had jumped 15% on news of the retail acquisition strategy. Your brother's applying for a company apartment in the subsidized housing block, she noted. Should I approve it? I thought about all the times they'd mocked my modest lifestyle while living beyond their means. Approve it, I decided. But put him in the building's garage apartment. I hear that's good enough for family. That evening, as I hosted a board meeting in my penthouse, I received a text from my mother. We were wrong. So terribly wrong. I looked around at what I'd built, the empire they'd never bothered to understand, the success they'd dismissed as a hobby. Yes, I typed back, you were. But don't worry. I'll teach you all about real business, one mortgage payment at a time. Sometimes success isn't about proving others wrong. Sometimes it's about building something so massive that their definition of success becomes laughably small. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's about watching your family realize that the future they mocked now owns their past. Schedule a company-wide meeting, I told Jessica. It's time to announce the Parker retail chain's digital transformation. After all, family businesses should keep up with the times whether they want to or not.